I ultimately got my boss, his boss, and their entire clique of friends fired. And it all started with a seemingly insignificant event that culminated in them handing me a pre-signed letter of termination as a threat. They had no idea I would accept. This whole story took place back in 2021, and to this day, it puts a Cheshire smile on my face. Let's set the scene. In January 2021, I started a new job at a massive American energy company's facility in Europe. At this specific plant, we assessed and reworked parts from gas turbines so they could be reused. Think of a single one of these parts. It could cost several $1,000s to produce from scratch and would last about a decade. Reworking them cost only a quarter of that, and the part would be good for another 8 to 10 years. Customers would pay about half to 3/4 the cost of a new part, and with thousands of these pieces in a single gas turbine, we're talking about millions of dollars per turbine. The company was sitting on a golden goose. For decades, this facility had an uncontested stream of income with virtually no competition, creating a win-win for both the customer and the company. But that kind of success, over time, breeds a dangerous complacency. Competence, innovation, and even basic honesty were no longer required from the facility's management. As long as the workers on the floor stuck to the established processes and did their jobs, the money kept flowing in, no matter what the office did or didn't do. You can probably see where this is going. I was hired into quality control to operate a 3D computer-managed measuring machine, or CMM. As you can imagine, gas turbines get incredibly hot and spin at dizzying speeds. A decade of intense heat and dynamic stress has a nasty habit of deforming metal. You can't have that. So my job was to measure these parts with extreme precision so the production team knew exactly what needed to be reworked, or if a part was too far gone to be saved. The basic operation wasn't too complicated. You put the part in a bracket, clamp it down, load the correct 3D model, and run the program. The machine spits out a report as a text file, an Excel sheet, and a PDF. The parts, usually rotary blades, almost always came in sets of anywhere from 24 to 216. Once a set was measured, you had to compile all the individual reports into a single, master Excel file using a somewhat complex method. I learned the whole process in about a week. That machine was immensely important to the facility, running 2 or 3 shifts a day, 6 days a week. Roughly 80% of all the parts that came through the plant had to be measured by it at least twice. And as anyone with a technical background knows, simply operating a machine and truly understanding it are two very different things. When I started, there were only 3 guys who really understood it, plus a technician named Dimitri who could actually fix the code or reprogram a model if something went wrong. But Dimitri was the technician for the entire facility, an incredibly busy guy, and if he had to come to our department, his time was billed to our budget, something the bosses actively discouraged. Of the 3 guys who knew the machine, the most important was Matteo. He'd been there for what felt like centuries, knew every nut and bolt, and though he was just a regular worker, he was the one everyone turned to when things went sideways. He had a bit of a short temper and a very blunt way of speaking, but he was honest, open, and incredibly fair. I'm not the most social person myself. I tend to be reserved, brutally honest, and I probably take my cold professional attitude a bit too seriously. I get along great with people who share my principles of honesty and responsibility, but I turn into an ice block around those who are less trustworthy. So, despite a few heated arguments, Matteo and I got along swimmingly. What nobody knew was that Matteo, who was 63, had accumulated so much overtime and unused vacation that he could retire 2 years early. He decided to groom me as his successor, teaching me every last detail about the CMM, how to fix minor issues, perform proper maintenance, and understand the why behind its operations. He was a perfectionist, and so was I, so I genuinely appreciated his guidance. But within my first week, I noticed the facility's biggest problem. It was riddled with cliques and clans. If you were in the right circle, you were untouchable. If you weren't, your accomplishments were credited to someone else, and you made for a convenient scapegoat. I didn't care much about it. I was there for a well-paying job, even with a brutal commute of nearly 2 hours each way. There was a 4th guy operating the machine. Let's call him Stefan. Stefan was part of a clique that included my boss, Lars, and Lars's boss, Mr. Keller. It also included his own boss, Leo, who happened to be his brother. He worked the CMM simply because it was the most comfortable job he could get. He usually took the night shift for the extra pay. As a light bulb, Stefan was a wet match in a dark basement. He was lazy, rude, and arrogant, shielded by his untouchable status. About 6 months after I started, the first incident occurred. The turbine blades arrived on pallets, and it was a firm rule that they had to be sorted in numerical order by their serial number. It just made the whole process faster and easier. Occasionally, an order would arrive unsorted, and we'd have to sort them as we measured. It was a bit annoying, but not a huge deal since you had to handle each blade one by one anyway. Stefan, however, had a habit of never finishing a set if he could help it, always leaving 1 or 2 blades for the next shift, and he would never, ever compile the final report. I'm pretty sure he didn't even know how. One morning, I came in to find just 3 blades left to measure. The problem was, the pallets of the finished set were a complete mess, totally unsorted. Stefan had worked the late shift the day before, so it was clearly his doing. This meant I had to spend my time sorting his mess while also starting the next measurement order to avoid delays. As our machine was a production bottleneck, it took me 2 hours of sweaty work to sort the pallets while juggling the machine. When Stefan came in that afternoon, I politely asked him why he hadn't sorted the order. He replied rudely that he just wouldn't do that. Baffled, I asked if he knew it was mandatory. He again said, "I won't speak about that," and smugly told me to take it up with my boss if I had a problem. So I did. I framed it as a question to my boss. "Lars, hey, I thought we were supposed to sort the parts, or did that procedure change?" This led to a 4-way meeting with myself, Lars, Stefan, and his brother, Leo. Leo was furious, and Lars was embarrassed. It was clear I was right, but neither of them wanted to admit their friend and brother had done anything wrong. I maintained my ice block persona, blank face, short, professional replies. The meeting ended with a lame request that we should please try to sort the pallets. Stefan just shrugged, clearly not caring. It happened 3 more times, and each time, he managed to avoid doing the work. Strike 1. 6 weeks later, the second incident happened. Every morning, I performed maintenance as Matteo had taught me, cleaning the machine and applying a special liquid to the stone guideway the machine's arch ran on. One morning, I switched the machine to manual mode to move the arch for cleaning, and was met with a horrible grinding noise. The arch rode on a cushion of air, like a hovercraft, to minimize vibrations. A grinding sound was a catastrophe. A quick inspection revealed a deep crater in the stone surface, about 1 inch wide and deep, enough for the air cushion to lose pressure. There were also scratches along nearly the entire length of the guideway, meaning the machine had been running like this for a while. I immediately shut everything down, informed Dimitri and Lars, and took time-stamped pictures of the damage out of sheer paranoia. The crater looked suspiciously like it was made by the corner of a blade being dropped on the surface, and the person on the shift right before me was, of course, Stefan. He denied everything, claiming he heard no grinding and saw no scratches. He even tried to blame me, but I had reported the damage within 5 minutes of my shift starting, with the last blade he measured still clamped in the machine. This reveals the clique's greatest fatal flaw, their arrogance, born from a belief that their positions made them untouchable. They were completely unaware that this single act of shielding incompetence would set the stage for their own downfall. It was obvious to everyone who was at fault, but again, he didn't receive so much as a harsh word. The machine was out of commission for over a month for repairs and recalibration. While it was down, I was moved to the pre-assessment team, where I made some good friends who would later become my eyes and ears. Strike 2. A month later, the machine was finally fixed, but we had a colossal backlog. Other departments were running out of work that didn't require our measurements. By this point, Matteo had left for his early retirement, and the other 2 knowledgeable colleagues had found better jobs. It was now just me and Stefan. One morning, I noticed something odd. An order I started the previous day still wasn't finished. The measurement cycle for each blade was about 3 minutes, plus another minute to swap them out. But checking the timestamps on the reports from Stefan's night shift, I saw gaps of 10, 15, even 30 minutes between measurements. I knew he was a slacker, but this was excessive. I asked him if he'd had trouble with the machine. He snapped that everything was fine. I pressed, showing him the gaps in the timestamps. He just looked at them, shrugged, and went home. The next Monday, it got worse. I came in after the weekend to find that 4 entire orders had been processed, according to the log, but when I went to compile the reports, there were none. The machine's logs showed it had been running all weekend, but not a single measurement report had been generated. I called in Dmitry and notified my boss, Lars, that the machine was down due to technical issues. It took us a while to figure it out because it was so unbelievable. Someone, Stefan, had simply turned off the machine's output function, probably to hide the timestamps revealing his laziness. This caused an uproar. All 4 orders had to be remeasured, and production was now at a standstill. And finally, the big boss, Mr. Keller, had had enough, but not of Stefan. That afternoon, Mr. Keller, the head of the entire assessment department, stormed into my measuring room, dressed in his expensive suit. He got right in my face while I was sitting in my chair, giving me no room to stand. He leaned over me and snapped that he was sick and tired of me bullying my coworker. Then, he handed me a letter, the official paperwork for my contract's termination, already signed by him. He gave me 2 options: apologize to Stefan, admit I was at fault, and promise to do better, or I would be fired immediately. Mr. Keller made a foolish decision at that moment. In his attempt to intimidate, he handed over the very weapon that would bring his corrupt little empire crashing down, completely unaware of the power he had just relinquished. Having been bullied for most of my childhood, I've learned to keep a cool head under pressure. I suppressed the urge to argue or point out the illegality of his threat. Instead, I calmly took the letter and read it through, nodding silently. He took my silence as compliance and smugly informed me that he expected my written apology by 2 p.m., which was when all the bosses went home for the day. As he turned and walked out with a triumphant grin, he left the signed termination letter in my hands. Fun fact about our contracts: if both parties agree, a contract can be terminated immediately with no further obligations. I had 2 hours. I spent them meticulously cleaning my workstation and backing up my work laptop to the server, following company rules to the letter. Then, also by the book, I completely wiped the hard drive. The backup was placed correctly on the server, but in a folder marked as unsearchable to prevent cluttering search results, a standard procedure. If you knew the rules and where to look, you could find the data in 20 seconds. If not, well, good luck searching through 10 terabytes of data. I signed my copy of the termination letter, scanned it to my personal email as allowed, put the original in the envelope, and packed my things. Then I walked up to the office. Mr. Keller's smug smile returned when he saw me, but it faltered into confusion when he saw I was also carrying my laptop and work phone. I handed him the envelope, gave a polite nod, and turned to leave. "Where the hell are you going?" he shouted. I turned back and said in the coldest, most clinical voice I could manage, "You terminated my contract. According to the rules, I am to hand over all company equipment before leaving. Exception according to paragraph B are safety shoes and glasses. I bid you a fine day, Mr. Keller." I then went to my boss Lars's desk and piled my equipment on it. He was completely confused. I briefly informed him my contract was terminated and once again quoted the company rule. Lars could be a smug ass, but he wasn't an idiot. His eyes went wide as he instantly realized that I was the only person left who knew how to properly operate and maintain the CMM. One of his peers even noted, "You got a pro QC guy? You hang on to him at all costs." Lars now understood he had failed that simple test. He knew about the massive backlog that was already causing other departments to go on short-time work. He was speechless for a moment, then rushed into Mr. Keller's office. Meanwhile, I went to the locker room, changed, and then walked to the security gate, where I requested a full inspection of my person and my backpack, as was regulation for employees terminated on short notice. The guards were baffled that I asked to be searched, but they complied and gave me a written confirmation that I had no company property on me. My now ex-boss, Lars, tried calling me repeatedly on my way home, but I muted his calls and read my book. I finally answered around 4 p.m. Well after his workday had ended. He tried to convince me I needed the job, that it could all be sorted out. My reply was simple: I will have a new job within a week. You will need at least a month to train someone new on that machine. If you even had anyone left who could train them, I'll tell you what, give me a contract for triple the pay, a written apology from Mr. Keller, and you all leave me in peace to do my work. Then I'll come back. He said I was being completely unreasonable. Let me get this straight, I said. 3 times I discover massive failures. 3 times you try to blame me. Then you and Mr. Keller literally try to humiliate me and he actually fires me. And you want me to be reasonable? I guess it would be reasonable to just ignore you from now on. Have a nice day. I hung up and blocked his number. The aftermath was exactly what I predicted. My friend still inside the company kept me updated. The facility's most sensitive bottleneck didn't just tighten, it was clogged with concrete. With no one performing the daily maintenance and cleaning, the precision machine quickly started to fail. Dimitri, the technician, was soon being called multiple times a day to fix problems I or Matteo would have handled in a minute. This, in turn, created a backlog for him elsewhere. As one person later commented, nepotism doesn't help when you don't know what adjustment screw to tweak or what the maintenance gremlins for a given machine happen to be. Dimitri tried to explain things to Stefan, but it was useless. Other departments completely ran out of work. Not wanting to take the blame for missed deadlines, they reported the issue up the ladder. It climbed higher and higher until it landed on the desk of the company's national CEO. The ripples of my departure had finally become a tidal wave, reaching shores far higher than Mr. Keller could have ever imagined. The machine of corporate justice, once stalled by their cronyism, was now grinding into motion, and it was looking for someone's head to put on a silver platter. Soon, the proverbial kill squad arrived, a team of people in tight suits with cold eyes and a clear mandate to find out who was responsible. I heard a prosecutor from the US was even with them. A month later, the company called and asked if I would come in to give a statement for their internal investigation. I happily complied, telling them the entire story as accurately as I could. The fallout was swift. Stefan was fired for careless negligence. His brother, Leo, was fired for mismanagement, along with my old boss, Lars, but Mr. Keller, their boss, not only got fired but was reportedly dragged into court in the US, given he was designated as the scapegoat by a global corporation. I can't imagine it went well for him. The entire facility went deep into the red for the year, paying tens of thousands in daily fees for missed contract deadlines. I heard the company had to hire the machine's original manufacturer to train new employees, for a price that likely had, as I joked, triple the zeros at the end. And me? I had a new job in less than a day. Fired on Monday, interview on Tuesday, started the next Monday. I now do manual measurements in an incoming quality control department. My boss is great, the team is friendly, and my commute is 18 minutes by scooter. I'm appreciated for my work, and I'm already the de facto team lead for first sample inspections. This story is a powerful reminder that true value in any organization lies in competence and integrity, and that underestimating the quiet professional who holds the keys to the operation can lead to catastrophic consequences. Have you ever been in a situation where you held a key piece of knowledge that your superiors overlooked? What happened?